Chillhop is a worthy competitor to Monster Hunter. I might say look at the reviews, but despite what the reviews on Steam may say, this game has what it takes to rival Monster Hunter if Omega Force plays their cards right. Back when Iceborne was not out yet and I had gotten tired of Base World, I tried out the free-to-play game Dauntless, and I thought, hey, a new Monster Hunter competitor, let's check it out. But I was severely disappointed by the monsters, the locales, and the combat, among other things. So much so that I uninstalled it after a few play sessions. And due to that experience, I personally thought that Omega Force wouldn't be able to get anywhere near Capcom's golden goose that is Monster Hunter. However, I was proven wrong within the first few hours of the game. Wild Hearts has that special something that Dauntless was just lacking. The reviews, rightfully so, bemoan the poor performance of this game. Even while playing solo, the game has issues with frame rates, pop-in of textures, whole objects, and even flickering. And mind you, I have a pretty strong PC with an RTX 3070, and it still didn't look good. The poor state that this game released in, and the content offering in my opinion, do not justify a $70 price tag. Although I don't think any game nowadays can justify a $70 price tag. Not with how bad the AAA industry has become. But that is a different issue entirely. However, fans of the monster hunting genre usually do not care too much about the look of a game, as long as it is solid. And is it solid? Well, I would say so. So let me get into why I think so. Yeah, future Hawx here. There's a small issue that I forgot to mention, which is the fact that there's an issue with the button mapping, for me personally at the very least. I don't quite understand why we are not allowed to unmap some buttons and keep them unmapped. So I personally wanted to switch the target camera from the right joystick, I use a PlayStation 4 controller, to the left trigger. And then the game demanded that I remap whatever it was that was on L1 to something different. And that kind of just kept going. And then there's some buttons that you don't really need. And I just wanted to keep them unmapped because I didn't need them. But then there's also the issue that there are some buttons who have like multi-purpose uses. And if you override, let's say, one of them, you automatically also override the other thing that the button was used for. And you can't really get rid of that, and I don't quite understand why. And that is a big issue for me. I don't understand why they came up with that. It is the first game that doesn't let me remap everything that I want and just leave buttons unmapped. It might just be me. I haven't had to remap things too often because they weren't as asinine as they are in this game. But yeah, it kind of is an issue for me.
And now for something completely different.
The areas in this game look stunning, textures and pop-in aside. Looking at the very first map you get dropped into after a very drawn out, very boring conversation with a masked stranger, you're immediately met with a lush forest just brimming with life. Or the last map with the overgrown mountain peak and the very weird looking celestial dragon kimono. The maps are rather large, and to me they feel like they suffered the same issue as games such as Assassin's Creed, where the maps are huge, but lack a reason for their size. The kimono don't even travel to many of the areas that exist on the map, and just run through them as if they were corridors. Yet, unlike how the corridors work in games such as Monster Hunter World or Rise, where they are short and get to the next battle area quickly, these are long, drawn out chase sequences where it feels more like the game is trying to waste your time. It also isn't as if the maps are populated by roving bands of smaller kimono. Sure, there are some exceptions, but those are usually localized groups of 2 or 3 smaller kimono, most of which don't even really seem to do much or even acknowledge your existence. However, in Rise Sunbreak, the map, the Citadel, is also pretty huge. And you can't really say that the roaming boggy are putting on a show for you to be entertained. And yet it doesn't feel like a set of corridors where you just move from monster arena to monster arena. Don't get me wrong, that is exactly what is happening. But it doesn't feel like it. You could walk out from the base camp and be greeted by 3 small gown goats eating something, and if you walk to a little area with the thorny toads, you can see the toads just vibing, going about their day while Boggy are running around on the hills, all the while the big monsters are doing something, be it grooming themselves, sleeping, or even fighting each other. And I know that you might say, but the same happens in Wild Hearts, but I wouldn't say it's the same. Just the other day, for example, I was hunting a lava back, and while it was just running up the mountain towards the caldera, it didn't feel like there was anything going on between engagement areas, as the areas are just empty, and the small kimono that you do see there are just walking around aimlessly. It does not feel like the monsters in the game really live in the world, but rather just act as if they do. The maps compared to the maps from recent Monster Hunter games still do look better, as the maps are more vibrant than the maps in, say, World, where the closest you got to a vibrant map was the Coral Highlands. But in spite of that, Wild Hearts maps blend a bit together to me, as most of the maps just have a way too similar Japanese aesthetic. The maps just don't have anything that sets them apart enough, such as striking and memorable areas like Monster Hunter with the Frozen Seaway and its water vortex, the Speartip Crag, or the underwater ruin with the ruins of the ancient civilization. The maps in Wild Hearts just have a random assortment of feudal Japanese buildings that have been destroyed in various ways. I also know that might legit just be me who even cares about it, or felt it being different from Monster Hunter, but to me it matters. The feeling of the world of Monster Hunter is an entirely unique one that had me drawn into it the very first time I even touched a Monster Hunter game. Now that we're done talking about the maps, let's talk about their inhabitants. The designs of the kimono leave me desiring more. Most of these kimono are mainly just regular animals, but supersized, and infused with some random assortment of nature. Something's missing. Ah, yeah, that fits. Ship it. I did get used to the looks after a while, but I enjoy the game in spite of the designs, rather than because of the designs. Sure, Monster Hunter has some somewhat out there designs, such as Velstrax, which could either be a comet or a fighter jet, but at the very least it is not just a chicken that someone stayed in one spot for so long plants thought it was free real estate. Another part of the kimono that downright infuriates me is their moveset. The fights on this game can range from fun to absolute hell, depending on how much the kimono AI hates you. The constant AoE spam by every kimono I have encountered so far is oppressive. Rarely do I see them do anything but AoE attacks, which is an issue that only gets worse the more you realize that their movesets are tiny. The Lavaback has done his little rocket-powered flying kick so often within a single minute, I lost my mind. Spine Glider constantly spinning towards you with its tail leaves no room to counter up until it is done doing that for ages. Don't get me wrong, they do still have single target attacks, but compared to how often they spam their AoE attacks, it feels like they might as well not be there. This issue of mine is just made worse with how wonky the building system can be. I tried so often to place down 6 boxes to get the bulwark to spawn, only to take a single step in any direction and have the box be built somewhere else, entirely shutting down the wall build. Same goes for the hammer or any of the other fusion karakuri that are spur of the moment builds. And if a monster walks into the build even slightly, the build will be stopped. This is probably intentional, but it is kinda annoying. This could easily be remedied by adding quick build options where you just select the karakuri and add it into the build wheel, just like you can with the regular karakuri. You could, for example, select different wheels by pressing the buttons on the D-pad, just like in Monster Hunter. But criticism aside, the kimono are all at the very least varied, which could not be said about Monster Hunter World, which apparently shunned any and all non-wyvern monsters. Although that was just an issue with World and not really many of the other Monster Hunter games. So let's get into the gear that you'll be using to fight these kimono. On one hand, the armors again have the issue of being mainly just heavily Japanese in their aesthetic, and that may be the point, but I got tired of the Ent Samurai armor after fighting a new kimono. On the other hand, the weapons in this game are great. The feeling when you hit a kimono has a nice oomph behind it. The playstyles are varied and really a lot of fun. The weapons may not be as deep as the weapons in Monster Hunter, but they're also not as shallow as the weapons in Dauntless. I feel like it is a nice in-between and a little faster than Monster Hunter. I personally love the Wagasa a lot, even though I'm not the best at it, but it's generally a nice feeling to get the parries off, even though it feels a bit wonky at times with the hitboxes. The combos are nice and short as well, and take a lot of advantage of the building. Wonder what else is nice and short? The matchmaking for multiplayer. Not only does the multiplayer make the constant AoE spam more bearable, but it is also super easy to hop in and out of multiplayer. The game may not have lobbies to socialize in like Monster Hunter, but unlike Monster Hunter, the matchmaking isn't horrible. Will's matchmaking would force you to wait until a cutscene is done for you to join up on your buddies, those cutscenes being unskippable. And before that, you have to slowly look through menus to look for your buddy's guild hall. And I don't even fully understand why Rise's matchmaking is as bad as it is. It just breaks off matchmaking after a minute for no apparent reason. Wild Hearts does away with all of that. You can either call in others via a single button press when tracking a kimono, or holding down a button when starting a hunt, or just launching into the multiplayer from the gate strewn about the map. So far my opinions may have been mainly negative in nature, but hear me out. This game has so much potential, and for the first game in its franchise, it is allowed to have these hiccups. Some of my criticisms could have easily been remedied by patches, others would have required bigger reworks that could either come with a DLC or a new installment in the franchise. But it can be done. It is not a lost cause like so many AAA releases nowadays. This game is onto something. I can only hope that EA recognizes the harsh reviews are not because of the core game being bad, but rather because there's a lack of optimization on top of a rock-solid foundation to build upon. As I mentioned in the very beginning, this game as of right now is not worth the $70 asking price. It lacks the polish and content for the premium price. So either wait for a discount if the performance issues are the only issue, or if you don't mind the performance issues, like me, and you are itching for a Monster Hunter game that is not Rise, and you have had enough of World, then I can say you might be happy with this game. Maybe. And if the promised free game updates are substantial and fun, unlike Rise Sunbreak's constantly upscaling anomaly ranks alongside monster ranks, then I believe the game would be worth $60. Hey, Future Hawx here, butting in again. The first game update came out while writing this, and recording this, and editing this. And it turns out it is just a cracked up lava back. Well, it is a bit more than just a cracked up lava back, but it is still just that in my eyes. And it is even worse with the unbalanced AoE spam. It feels very oppressive again, and the performance issues persist, at least on my end. Yeah, I think I'm gonna pass on this game. I still do think that they can make this game a lot better and, you know, a proper competitor to Monster Hunter, but as of right now, yeah, they need to fix the performance issues first before I even give this game a try again. So, thank you so much for watching this. Thank you so much for bearing with my probably asinine takes. This is the first time I've tried something like this, and I know that I have a lot of learning to do for this still. So if you have any feedback, criticism, whatever, just give it to me. It is always helpful to just say something instead of just not saying something. And yeah, if you want to see more of me, like, share, and sub, so I know that you want more. And if you want to see me alive and hear more of my asinine takes, I stream over on Twitch at twitch.tv/its_Hawx. And yeah, I'll see you guys next time.